So hello and welcome everyone to this month's webinar, Islandora webinar, where we will highlight the Tulane University Digital Library. As I mentioned, my name is Erin Tripp. I'm the Business Development Manager at Discovery Garden. My colleague Adam Smith in Sales and Marketing from Discovery Garden is also joining us today. And our panelist, the real highlight of today's webinar is Jeff Rubin from Tulane University. So the idea around today's webinar is really just to highlight Islandora, just do an overview of Islandora and its community, talk a little bit about our service bundles, and that's our segue to talk about the Tulane University project as well. We will have people joining as we go along through the webinar. So you may hear reoccurring calls for me to, from me for people to mute their microphones. So let's get started into the content here. For anyone who is new to the Islandora community, I wanted to do a quick overview of the Islandora software. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the stack, Islandora really is comprised of three main components. We use Drupal, it's a CMS, and we use it for presentation and collaboration. So when we say presentation, it's how we get our digital assets available on the web. For anyone who just joined the webinar, I'll just remind you to please mute your microphone. Thank you. So Drupal is primarily used for presentation and collaboration. So yes, presentation is how we get our assets available online on the internet. And the collaboration portion refers to the user role and permission framework in Drupal. We integrate that in with a number of different tools in Islandora, and it helps us manage the workflow of our digital assets in the repository. Apache Solr is used for search and discovery. So it is the tool that is indexing all of the information about our digital assets. That includes descriptive metadata, relationship information, technical metadata, and so on. So any information that is indexed is discoverable. So Apache Solr is what makes our content discoverable on our repository website. Discovery off of the repository website, for instance, indexing on Google and Google Scholar, or being harvestable through the Open Archives Initiative for Protocol for Metadata Harvesting, or OAI-PMH. Those are a little bit different from Apache Solr, but still relevant. And then the last component is Fedora Commons. We use it for storage and preservation. So Fedora is where all of our information is stored. Using the terminology from the Fedora community, Fedora stores objects. Everything is an object. So a collection is an object, a PDF is an object, an image is an object. And the way that Fedora stores objects is it breaks the components down into what are called data streams. So I won't get into too much detail on Fedora Commons, the description of objects and data streams, but that's just a quick overview. For anyone who has just joined the webinar, please mute your microphone. Thank you. So now let's do a quick overview of the Islandora community. Islandora started in Prince Edward Island, Canada, so a very small province on the east coast of Canada, and it has spread worldwide. So we have installations primarily in North America and Europe, but we can now say that we have installations on every continent. There are a couple not depicted in Africa that we know of. We know of 3 installations in Africa. So Islandora has really picked up steam or momentum over the last 3 years, and I would say that the momentum really started building when the Islandora community moved from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7. Islandora became easier to use. It became much more robust by way of tools and features, and easier to maintain. It was a lot easier to maintain because it was more stable. For anyone who has just joined the webinar, I'd ask you to please mute your microphone. Thank you. Now, another portion of the community is Discovery Garden. So we're a vendor, but we see ourselves as part of the Islandora community or the Islandora ecosystem. So we launched officially in 2010 as the result of a commercialization project from the University of Prince Edward Island. So the software was first developed at the University of Prince Edward Island, and they said, this is terrific. Open source communities, they benefit from having vendor support. So we got a government grant to launch the company. Now, later in 2013, a nonprofit organization was formed called the Islandora Foundation. And we became partners in the Islandora Foundation right from the get-go because we wanted to be involved in the direction of the community and supporting the community over the long term. And as I mentioned, we are a service provider, but we see our role as removing barriers to organizations that want to participate in open source software. So for institutions that might be smaller and may not have a lot of staff resources, open source can be scary. So we see ourselves as a tool that people can leverage to make the implementation of open source software easier. One other important thing to note is when Islandora moved from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7, there was an enormous rewrite of code. We decided to implement Drupal coding standards and a rigorous quality assurance testing process. DiscoveryGarden was deeply involved in that rewrite, and as a result, DiscoveryGarden has written and contributed over 90% of the core Islandora code. We will see that percentage decrease, and it's not because our contributions are decreasing, but because the community has become more mature and more robust, and now other organizations are contributing more as well. So the next portion of the webinar is just to do a very quick review of some new bundles that we're launching. We're going to hear from Jeff Rubin from Tulane University a little later on, and he actually started his project with one of our service bundles. So this is kind of the segue hook that's going to lead us into Jeff's presentation. So bundles, they're just groups of services, and we really started grouping and providing bundles in September 2014. It was about 15 months ago. And we decided repositories are so complex and these projects can be so overwhelming. Why don't we group together common services? Services that almost everyone requires when they're starting their project. So that was the idea in September 2014 when we first launched our service bundles. Like I said, bundles are really just intended to simplify the initial steps so that you don't see barrier after barrier. You know that you can get started and then reassess and move on to further priorities. We've received a lot of support for the service bundles. They went over really well in the Islandora community in general. And we always do request feedback from our customers. So we have just today launched new service bundles. We've improved 3 bundles and launched a brand new bundle based on the feedback we've received over the last 15 months. So just to review the bundles, the first is the audit. The audit is intended for organizations that have already installed Islandora, but they want someone to check it over to make sure that it's running properly and based on best practices. So this bundle is intended for folks that have access to ITS staff and have already installed Islandora. The basic install service bundle is essentially just that. It's an installation of Islandora with the best practices developed at DiscoveryGarden and includes detailed installation documentation for your system staff. The Learn and Build bundle is a brand new service we're offering. Now, this is for groups that are really focused on knowledge transfer, and they're looking to be trained and to build confidence in the Islandora stack. So we can offer a variety of services, including audits, including training and custom development services as part of the Learn and Build bundle. And the last is the Jumpstart bundle. It's our most popular bundle, and it is for organizations that don't have a whole lot of background in the Islandora community. They haven't used it before, and they may or may not have access to ITS staff either. So I'll send you guys to our website if you're looking for more information. It's discoverygarden.ca/services. And there is detailed information on each package price. And we've designed the new bundles for cost savings in mind as well. So you can save up to 30% off of our regular service prices. And so let's get on to the Tulane University portion of the webinar. Our guest is Jeff Rubin, and he's a Jumpstart Bundle customer. And I'd just like to say hello, Jeff. Is your mic still muted?
My mic is unmuted.
There you go.
Hello. Good day, everyone.
I'd like to welcome Jeff Rubin from Tulane University. He's going to be telling us a little bit about the Islandora implementation project at the university and in the library. And I'll hand things over to you, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Erin. And thanks, everyone, for attending this. So we started this process 10 months ago, back in February, and when we initially started signing agreements with Discovery Garden. And we launched our site, or relaunched, in September, late September. And what we did was we migrated our content from CONTENTdm, which we were using for our digital library platform and for electronic theses and dissertations. And so the whole process was really pretty well organized and a huge help having Discovery Garden help us do this. We are not a small and we're not a large institution, and we did not have the manpower to install and configure Islandora on our own without some significant investment in personnel and time. And so we looked at this as an opportunity to really utilize and leverage what we have to get to where we wanted to be. And that was, a system that allowed us much more freedom and many more opportunities to store, to preserve, and to make accessible all of our content that we have on campus. So I oversee digital initiatives at Howard-Tilton Memorial Library, and we offer open access journal publishing. We have Tulane University Digital Library, which utilizes special collections within the library and also collections from all over Tulane's campus. So not just the library, but it's open to the entire Tulane community to use. And we also provide access to electronic theses and dissertations through Islandora now. So Erin, we can go to the next slide. So here is a screenshot of our digital library page. We had close to 40 collections that existed in CONTENTdm, which covered a great sort of variety of materials. We have Latin American library, Latin American studies at Tulane. We have an amazing jazz archive, the Hogan Jazz Archive, Louisiana Research Collection, which focuses on Louisiana and New Orleans history, Southeast Architectural Archive. We have African American history and civil rights through Amistad Research Center, and also electronic theses and dissertations, which is a sort of mandated function for graduation here. So all students have to submit their theses and dissertations online as a requirement for graduation. So yeah, we started with a Jumpstart bundle, and the first part of that was an assessment of what we had and what we wanted, where we wanted to end up. So we examined the content of our collections, the metadata, how that metadata would be then mapped from Dublin Core to the mods metadata schema, what sort of customizations we wanted, what kind of differences we wanted it to basically have the same functionality that we had internally for our digital library, except for the back end part, which would be then Islandora. And then the last part of this was migrating, which is a significant process to migrate all of those objects and the metadata, crosswalk it over to mods, make sure that things were displaying, make sure that they ingested properly, make sure that the search and discoverability of all of those things, all of those items were there in place. That process took a lot of time, and Discovery Garden we just could not do it without their expertise in this. And we are much further along now, having entered into that agreement with them, that signing up for the Jumpstart bundle, than we would ever be without that. We are a member of the Louisiana Digital Library, which is a consortium, a statewide consortium of digital libraries. They are migrating over to Islandora as well, but we are there currently. And so down the road, what we're going to have is the ability to search and interface with collections from lots and lots of institutions and members across the state. So after, and in conjunction with the migration, and when some of that material was in, the theming really got started, where we could lay out and design and work on a user interface for our digital library and our repository aspects of that. So Aaron, what's the next step? So like I said, so the digital library is a part of the Tulane Digital Repository, and the digital repository features the digital library. It's like an umbrella, and the services that we provide fall under that repository. So thesis and dissertation, digital library, journal publishing. We have a non-journal publication tier also, a library speaker series, which is a collection of talks, videos from speakers that take place at the library. And then we have an online exhibit service powered by Omeka. And those, the exhibit, able to utilize objects from within our digital library collections and from other sources to create stories based on a lot of the collections that we have. So let's advance. So one of the, our collections range from sort of just after the printing press was discovered in the New World, or utilized in the New World, with Mesoamerican printed manuscripts from the late 16th century, all the way up to contemporary materials, videos from the New Orleans Hip Hop and Bounce Archive. And these are contemporary video oral histories that we are still adding to. So there's a great span of material, a great diversity of items to be found. Audio, video, text, manuscripts, photography, and we have many projects that are kind of in our queue to work on and get published soon. Probably within the next 6 to 12 months, we'll be adding a significant number of more collections. The interface for Islandora with the video player is much improved from what we had before in using CONTENTdm, and that was another feature that we liked, the ability to pull in these open source players that are mobile ready, and the responsive design nature of Islandora and its interface is also sort of a big jump from where we were. Let's move on to the next slide. So one of the big collections that we had, one of the sort of most challenging things is creating a workflow for students to submit their thesis or dissertation directly into Islandora. And we have a submission form that is available once you log in using your credentials, your school credentials. You fill out the form, attach your dissertation, ingest, and that goes to a sort of pending queue where the information is reviewed and then approved and published. And that creation and that workflow, we had one before in CONTENTdm. It functioned fairly well, except it was outside of CONTENTdm. It did not directly ingest into the system. This new ingest will go directly into Islandora. It'll bypass us having to sort of gather everything and then re-ingest it ourselves. So students, the interface, the form, the submission, the workflow, all is taken from the user's desk directly into Islandora. And it will really cut down a lot of the work that we do here. The workflows are a really significant thing to think about when, if you're thinking about moving into Islandora or migrating content in, how Islandora works is radically different than what we were used to, how CONTENTdm works. And it has been, and still is, a learning curve. We just opened late September, so we're relatively new at Islandora. We have learned quite a bit, but the approach that we're taking, and that we sort of have to take, is that the development of Islandora and all of its feature set is a sort of continuous work, a continuous process of improvement. So there are lots of things that we're still learning and that we will implement in the future. But we're at a place that we thought everything is ready for the public to view. And the rest of our learning basically happens on a development server and happens away from the public space and gets pushed out to the production server when everything works out. And so there is no shortage of issues that we're working on. We're trying to look into offering new services through Islandora to be able to take full advantage of the repository nature of this. We are utilizing some of the preservation features currently, although in our migration, we did not migrate master files in. We took the content that was in CONTENTdm and migrated that over. All new content that goes in, master files are ingested into the system, and we're able to sort of establish an initial checksum on ingest and monitor the health of those files over the long period of time. The key for thinking and making that step to move into Islandora is really wrapped around planning. And the more you plan, the better the results will be. Looking at every aspect of what you are doing or what you want to do is crucial. So with your current and future collection needs, what metadata schemas you're using, how those metadata schemes will be mapped over to, if you're using mods or a variety of metadata schemas that you can use with Islandora. Those issues. The display issues are quite different than what we were used to in CONTENTdm, and that opens up a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges with our collections, because our collections have a lot of variation in them, from images to videos to historical manuscripts. The way that Islandora functions, and this was a crucial thing for myself and for us to think about, was that everything is built around a content model in Islandora. And that content model is based on the type of object that's going to be in that collection. So there is a large image content model, there's a video content model, there's an audio content model, et cetera. There's one for PDFs, there's one for documents. And that, the display, the way your objects and your metadata displays come from the type of content model that you're using. So for a large image content model, you might have 30 collections that have large images in them. And it could be paintings, it could be photographs, it could be documents that are images. And one content model, there's one sort of display set for that content model. Now, how you, the difference between Islandora and CONTENTdm is that in CONTENTdm, everything was based around a collection. So you could customize a collection and display what you wanted to display very easily. In Islandora, it's all based on the content model. So if you change the content, the display settings for a content model, it has effects on every other collection that uses that content model. So that's something that, you know, needs planning, and in the future it might be structured differently in later releases. But the way it is now, that planning for your collections and how they display can be, well, it's a challenge, but it's something that you just have to plan out and think and deal with. But we've done it, and all works very well. The other issue with the planning is the workflow issue, how the work gets into Islandora and how it's ingested, whether item by item or whether through batch ingest, and that transformation into XML metadata and what forms are going to be used. That is another sort of key issue that it's a learning curve for us, and one we're adapting to and getting better at, but it takes some doing. The user interface is very nice, but the training and the support of Discovery Garden and the community as a whole has been tremendous, and I can't oversell it enough. Discovery Garden has been a tremendous help in giving their expertise and providing assistance and the skill set needed to do some of what we needed to be done. And the community has been incredibly generous in giving back and sharing their knowledge. And there's an active discussion list for support for issues that is open. People are submitting questions, issues, trying to solve other people's issues on that. And so it's been a tremendous experience to sort of have this world opened up for us, and to be able to interact with people from across North America and and beyond from Europe and from South America on these discussion boards and getting their expertise. So the more specific you are in planning, the much better the results will be. And so that assessment period, that initial period of building requirements and needs is crucial for having success on the end part. So I would like to thank my colleagues here, Phil Suda, who is our system admin, a system librarian at the library, who is kind of my partner in this Islandora venture, as well as Bernadette Berzer, who is my assistant and who handles the digitization and metadata and ingesting of collections into Islandora, and Pat Vince, who oversees user services and information technology at the library, who is my boss, has been a tremendous support. So having that support internal to your organization is crucial for success. And we have a great team, very dedicated, and we rely heavily on Discovery Garden and the Islandora community as a whole for our success. So Erin, what's next?
So the question period is next. I just wanted to pick up on Jeff's last point, that the definition of requirements and use cases it's probably the number one indicator of a successful project. Another great starting point for any digital repository project is a testing period. And I won't get too much into that, but it is absolutely true. I agree with you wholeheartedly about that initial phase, really determining the result, the end result. But now I get to ask you a bunch of questions. And don't worry, Jeff's seen these questions before. So let's just kind of start from the top. I know that you've identified that you wanted to migrate your content, but were there objectives beyond like the preservation and repository objectives for this project?
Well, we wanted to be in a place to utilize eventually the full repository aspect that comes with Fedora and built into Islandora, and including down the road how we handle possibly data management through this. So we were in a place where we were not happy with what was going on with the development of our current platform. So our main objective was to move everything as seamlessly as possible to the user, and to create a platform, or to have a platform that allowed us to not only do and display and manage what we had, but to allow us to grow significantly in our capabilities of what kind of materials we could display, how we could manage those items, how we can share those things, how we can use permissions to collaborate on projects with others. And we did a significant amount of research into what was available in the marketplace, including the open source marketplace. And we found that Islandora was the best platform available at the time. And so we were, we had been thinking about this for quite some time, and the opportunity presented itself for us to take this on. And so we did, and I think it's it's been an amazing experience, and it's only sort of improving and getting better. The more we know, the more we understand exactly how the parts and the layers within Islandora work and function, the better product we can deliver to our users.
And that's a great point. I feel that the open source experience really is about empowering service providers. So that's a wonderful point.
Yeah, so we look at everything that we do basically as providing a service. And the better we can provide that service, the better relationships we have with our users, whether those users are at Tulane, part of the Tulane community, or within the United States, or within North America, or across the globe. So everything really actually in our digital library is open access. It's completely available to anybody. There are no real restrictions on anything. There are some embargoes on theses and dissertations, but 99+% of everything is available to anyone to view.
So what have been the easy parts of this process? Have there been any?
Signing the piece of paper might have been the easiest part.
Right.
But actually, working with Discovery Garden, working with you and the team there has been a pleasure. It's not that I think would be right up there with the easiest parts of it. You've held our hands when we needed that, and you've sort of helped us learn and guided us. The working and entering into the Islandora community as a whole has been really easy and welcoming, and that was a pleasant. It wasn't a shock at all, but it was a really pleasant benefit of this project. And using Islandora is that community part of it. The other part, the real doing it of, is not. I wouldn't consider it easy, but it was much less painful doing it this way.
Let me ask you, was it intimidating the first time that you were engaging with the Islandora community, posting to the online discussion forum, anything like that? Was that a difficult thing to start?
It really wasn't. We had been sort of lurking and searching and trying to find answers to some questions, and by doing that, we were able to see the types of questions people were asking, and the types of questions range from very introductory type questions to very, very detailed code-based questions, and so we fit into that that realm pretty easily. And so no, it wasn't. It was, and then once we got our first reply, which was very quick, there's always somebody going to reply, it seems, within 24 hours to your, if not sooner, to your question. So that was really all we needed to sort of begin using that the community, and then if we could actually reply to someone else's question, that was a turning point too, in a sense, where we could actually add something rather than just sort of asking and needing help, or at least to sort of pass on our experiences.
Yeah, I think that's a real milestone moment when you go from asking to answering.
Yes. So yeah, it's not, I get the sort of daily digest of topics, and my colleagues do. And if there's something that we have some insight or have done or just done or do, we, by all means, we answer back. And usually the threads go, across, 4 or 5 people who chime in on these topics, and you get a sort of a variety of points of view to how to solve an issue, whether it's a workaround or a true sort of dead-on solution.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, what have been the most difficult tasks? I know that in one of your slides you said, mapping your metadata was really difficult. Also, the change in between collection-based configuration and content model-based configuration. Would you add anything to those in the difficult category?
Some of the workflow issues have proven to be challenging. Some of the forms and sometimes some of the controls on the form of what you want to do with a form can be challenging, but there's always a solution in sight for those. So those are the most, to me, the most difficult parts of it. The migration issue was in some ways less challenging because we were doing that with you. The other issues, how to, everyone's workflows are going to be kind of the same and kind of different from everyone else. So solving those issues is a challenge in a sense, but all doable. And so I think those are the most difficult parts from the actual, of doing it and what you're kind of faced with day to day. Getting to that point where, okay, now everything's functioning how I want it to function. Now we can release it out and start using it. The other thing was going from Dublin Core to mods and XML and how we do that and how we sort of drill through those mods elements to find and use those elements, in a standard way across our collections. They're challenging. It's all doable, but it's a lot of work to do. And again, the more you prepare, the more you have these things laid out and ready, the better the results will be.
We already talked a little bit about timeline. I know that you started in the spring of 2015, launched about 7 months later. Anything that you would say or comment on regarding timeline, what people can and should expect?
I think the timeline, in some ways, it seemed like we had plenty of time, but really, when you get down to it, there was so much to do that time frame of 7 months, and once we signed the papers, then it took a little while to actually get into the process of the assessment and going back and forth and communicating what we were looking for and what we needed. So there's a lot of time built in there for communication. So, I think that's an average thing. I don't think a year even would be, too much. But I would say somewhere between, depending on where you're starting from, between 6 months and a year for the whole thing. If you're starting with no content, then that obviously shaves off a lot of time. If you have a sort of moderate amount of content, which I think is what we did, there's that. And then if you have an extreme amount of content, or if you are moving from another kind of full institutional repository platform to, say, bpress Digital Commons to Islandora, there's a whole another set of aspects to Islandora that need to be configured. So yeah, I think it's easily, you can do it probably in less time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing it in a lot less time. But it all, if you're prepared and you're ready and you have everything lined up, then yeah, the shorter the would be good. But it's not a waste of time to spend the planning and preparing for it, and making sure that you get it correct. Even if it puts it off for delays implementation for just a little bit, it's worth it in the end.
No, that's a good comment. I get that question an awful lot, and you're right. There are a lot of variables in every repository project. The amount of content, where it's coming from, if you're starting fresh, migrating, and then if there are custom requirements, so on and so forth. But I think you nailed it right on the head there. The planning process really will determine the timeline, and the more preparation you can do for that planning process, the better.
Yeah, and then again, not everyone, everyone's situation is varied. So some people are going to have to act sooner, and some people will have the ability to, or have the opportunity to spend a little more time in it. And so, it's all a ballpark, but it's all worthwhile time spent. It's a complicated process, and it's a complicated piece of software, or a piece of softwares, that work together. And it's not, you can't just throw stuff at it and hope for the best, in a sense.
And last question, what have been the impacts that you guys have felt since you've launched the repository?
Oh, I think the worldview has opened up a bit. We were feeling a bit constrained in our previous platform with what it could do, with any kind of interaction with users and or the community, and sort of that veil has been lifted, and it feels like a much more worldview, if you can think about it in that way, in the platform. And so it's opened up a lot of opportunities for us to do further things that we've been thinking about and wanting to do. It opens up a world of sort of people to work with, to talk to get to know, who are doing similar things or maybe very different things that are extremely interesting. And so those aspects of it, I think, are, it's hard to quantify it. In some ways, it's, well, it's impossible to quantify, but the value in doing that and in being there, I think, is some ways priceless. It goes along with the nature of sort of the universities, colleges, and institutions that are using the platform. That is what they do, right? I mean, they engage with people, with students, with faculty, with other institutions, with other researchers. And so being able to do that via software, via what we provide, via our services, is a great sort of byproduct that comes for free with Islandora.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeff, so much for answering those questions. If anyone on the line would like to ask a question, there is a chat function at the top of your screen. It looks like a little speech bubble if you want to type anything in. While I give people an opportunity to type something, we have some links for folks if they want to find more information about what we discussed today. The first bullet there is a link to our services and bundles, so you can find details on all of the services that Discovery Garden provides, including cost information and cost savings in the case of the bundles. There are case studies on our website. The Tulane University Digital Library is the latest one, and you can find that on our website at /case studies. Also, general information on the Islandora framework can be found at the Islandora Foundation website, and that's islandora.ca. On their site, they have a list of installations, links that you can click on and explore other Islandora installations. So I don't believe we do have any questions right now from the participants online. If anyone does have questions, I know often when I hang up the phone, that's when I think of my best question. You're free to email us questions and we can send you responses via email. This session was recorded and I will be sending a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck to all participants. Thank you so much, Jeff Rubin, for being here and speaking with us.
It's been my pleasure. Aaron, can I just chime in one and say, if anyone, feel free to contact me about any of this or about anything we didn't talk about. I'm more than happy to talk with people and lend what I can lend. So, shoot me an email, call, anything is fine.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jeff. And thank you everyone for attending. I hope that you have a wonderful day and a very happy holiday. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
The beginning